Have you ever wondered why some people seem to suffer deeply in old age, while others move through it with peace and quiet strength? It's not the gray hair or slower steps that weigh most heavily, it's the absence of things that give life meaning, connection, purpose, and a sense of being valued. Too many people assume that loneliness, regret, and boredom are just part of growing old. But that's not the truth. Aging doesn't have to mean fading away. In fact, it can be a deeply fulfilling chapter, if certain key needs are met. In this video, we'll explore 7 simple yet essential things that every person in their 70s and beyond deserves to have. These aren't luxuries. They're quiet foundations that keep the spirit alive. Without them, days feel longer, nights lonelier. But with them, something changes, joy returns, confidence grows, and you begin to feel like you again. This isn't about fixing the past. It's about reclaiming the richness of the present. So stay with us. By the end, you'll not only see what may be missing, you'll know how to begin bringing it back. Let's begin. Number 1. The habit of mental stimulation and everyday curiosity. As the body slows, gently, naturally, one of the most precious gifts we still carry is the mind. But so often this gift sits unopened. The days begin to blur. Conversations grow shorter. Familiar routines settle in. And without even noticing, the thrill of newness fades. What was once a vibrant, curious world becomes muted, not painful necessarily, just dull. And over time, that dullness can become a quiet kind of suffering. Let me tell you about Leonard, 83 years old, a retired accountant who once lit up at the sight of a puzzle or problem to solve. When he first retired, he welcomed the rest. No spreadsheets, no meetings. Just long afternoons and quiet mornings. But the peace he longed for slowly turned to monotony. He read the same news each day, watched the same reruns, answered the same polite questions. And with each passing week, something inside him dimmed. He wasn't unhappy, but he also wasn't fully alive. Then one birthday, his granddaughter brought him a book of crosswords. Simple, thoughtful, something to keep the brain busy, she said with a wink. At first, Leonard stumbled through the easiest ones. But slowly they became part of his mornings. His focus sharpened. His eyes brightened. And most beautifully, his curiosity came back. That's the secret many forget. Your brain needs challenge the same way your muscles need movement. It thrives on novelty, on exploration, on the tiny sparks that come from learning, even if it's just one new word or idea each day. Because when your mind goes unstimulated, life flattens. But when your mind is engaged, life expands. Mental stimulation doesn't need to be grand. It can be trying a new recipe, reading a different genre of book, watching a documentary on a topic you know little about, asking deeper questions, journaling, learning to use a new app. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to stay in the game. Every small mental stretch is a statement. I'm still curious. I'm still growing. My story is still unfolding. People sometimes say, at this age, what's the point? But that's exactly when the point becomes clearer. It's not about proving anything. It's about feeling mentally alive. Curiosity isn't childish, it's vital. It keeps you flexible, emotionally resilient, and even more open to joy. A stimulated mind can help you weather loss, navigate change, and find wonder in even the smallest corners of your day. So no, growth does not stop at 60, or 70, or 80. It just changes form. The questions shift. The pace slows. But the desire to know, to wonder, to explore, it's still there. It always has been. Give that part of yourself just 10 minutes today. Solve a puzzle. Ask a new question. Try a small first. You'll be amazed at how that tiny spark pushes back against the quiet shadows of boredom and disconnection. Number 2. The presence of emotional connection with others. Some of the deepest aches we carry as we age aren't felt in our joints or muscles. They live in the quiet spaces of our hearts. And they often begin not with a dramatic loss but with something subtle. A call that doesn't come. A visit postponed. A silence that lingers a little too long. At first, it just feels like space. But gradually, that space turns into something heavier, isolation. And soon, a person begins to wonder, often silently, do I still matter to anyone? Emotional connection isn't a luxury in our later years. It's a lifeline. Let me tell you about Eleanor, a 78-year-old widow who once hosted vibrant dinner parties, laughed late into the evenings, and could always count on a friend to drop by. But time did what time does. Her closest companions moved, slowed down, or passed on. Her children called when they could, but between their jobs and grandchildren, life became full. For them, at least. Eleanor didn't complain. She didn't want to bother anyone. But what settled in wasn't peace. It was a kind of ache, not in the body but in the soul. A quiet sorrow that comes from not being seen. From having stories with no one to share them with. From wondering whether your presence makes any difference to anyone anymore. What she missed wasn't activity or noise. It was connection. The kind that makes you feel known. The kind that lets you laugh freely or sit in silence and still feel understood. We now know, medically and emotionally, that isolation is no small matter. It raises stress. It increases the risk of memory loss. It even shortens life expectancy. But perhaps most painfully, it dims the soul. It convinces people they're burdens when in truth, they're treasures waiting to be uncovered again. Here's the good news. Connection doesn't require a crowd. It often starts with just one steady thread. A weekly phone call with an old friend. A neighbor you greet on morning walks. A group that gathers every other Thursday. Even an online book club or a shared puzzle table at the library. It's not about being busy. It's about being emotionally seen by someone who remembers your name, your story, your smile. And if that feels far away right now, begin gently. Smile at the cashier. Send a kind note to someone you've lost touch with. Ask for help with something, not out of weakness but because you know connection lives in those small, shared efforts. At the heart of it, every person, no matter their age, longs for the same thing. To be known. To be missed when absent. To be loved not out of duty but out of care. When that disappears, life doesn't just feel quiet, it starts to feel invisible. But even one genuine connection can change that. Because when someone listens, really listens. When someone remembers something you said 2 weeks ago. When someone smiles because you showed up. That moment becomes a reason to wake up with hope again. So if you felt the grayness of being alone lately, reach. Even gently. Even awkwardly. Because connection isn't just nice, it's healing. And you're never too old to belong. If this message touched something inside you, I'd love to know. Leave a comment below with number 2 if this part resonated with your heart. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and tap the bell, so you'll never miss a reminder that you matter and you're not alone. We read every comment. We see you. And we're here, walking this with you. Number 3. Nurturing physical vitality through gentle daily movement. As we age, energy doesn't vanish overnight. It ebbs slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one day even the simplest tasks begin to feel just a little heavier. It's not just about fitness. It's about staying engaged with life. You see, when the body starts to slow, even slightly, the world can begin to feel more distant. The stairs look longer. The grocery store farther. Even getting out of bed can feel like a hurdle. And when your body doesn't feel like an ally anymore, retreat often follows. Not from laziness but from quiet discouragement. Let me tell you about Raymond, 81, once a vibrant outdoorsy man who spent his weekends hiking with friends. But after a bout with pneumonia, he told himself he'd rest, just for a couple of weeks. Those weeks turned into months. His legs weakened. His balance faltered. Confidence gave way to hesitation. Soon, a walk around the block felt as daunting as a mountain trail. What Raymond, and many like him, didn't realize is something doctors now say with growing urgency. It's not about doing a lot, it's about doing a little, consistently. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need to push or strain. You simply need to move, kindly, daily, and in a way that meets you exactly where you are. A gentle stretch while the kettle boils. A few leg lifts while brushing your teeth. Light resistance bands in the afternoon sun. Even standing and sitting a few extra times each day, it all counts. These are not trivial actions. They are investments, small deposits into your strength, balance, and dignity. They keep your muscles alive, your joints fluid, your blood moving. And more than that, they help you remember, you are still capable. And that belief? That inner whisper of I can, It's one of the most powerful antidotes to the sorrow that can settle into old age. Because when the body moves, the spirit stirs. Your mood lifts. Your appetite for life returns. You feel yourself in the world again, not just watching it pass by. And perhaps most beautiful of all, these moments of movement carry with them a quiet pride. Not the noisy kind that compares you to your younger self, but the kind that says, "Today I showed up for myself." That matters. One of the great lies aging tells is, if I can't do what I used to do, I shouldn't do anything at all. But the truth is softer and far more hopeful. You don't need to do what you did before. You just need to keep moving forward in whatever way your body allows today. That's enough. In fact, that's more than enough. Because every small act of movement says something powerful. I still belong here. I still have somewhere to go, someone to care for, even if that someone is me. So if you're watching this and feeling unsure of where to start, begin with just one movement. One stretch. One walk. One breath that leads to action. It's not about reclaiming who you were. It's about honoring who you are now and giving yourself the strength to meet tomorrow with grace. Number 4. The presence of a purposeful daily rhythm. There's something quietly unsettling about a day without direction. Not because the clock keeps ticking, but because time starts to feel empty. You wake up, go through the motions, and by nightfall you can't quite recall what the day held. It's not exhaustion you feel, it's a kind of ache, a whisper that something meaningful is missing. That whisper is the absence of purpose. In our younger years, our days are filled with obligations, jobs to do, children to raise, plans to make. But in the later chapters of life, those external demands fade. What we're left with is choice. And while freedom sounds appealing, too much of it, without structure or intention, can feel like floating without a compass. Let me share with you the story of Harold, a 76-year-old former train engineer. When he first retired, he basked in the freedom. No alarm clocks, no meetings, no deadlines. It was bliss for a while. But months turned into years, and that bliss quietly unraveled. His days grew shapeless. He stayed up too late. Meals lost their flavor. He moved less, smiled less. And when someone asked how he spent his days, he didn't quite know what to say. That silence said it all. You see, we humans are built for rhythm. Not rigid schedules, but meaningful rituals. Purpose doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't mean launching a new career or volunteering every afternoon. It simply needs to feel like it matters to you. The elders who radiate a quiet joy, they're not always the busiest. But they do have something they return to. A garden to tend. A poem to finish. A neighbor to check on. A drawer to sort. A prayer to say. These may seem small, but they are sacred threads that stitch the day together. And those threads? They do something powerful. They help you wake with intention. They give your body a reason to rise, your heart a reason to open, and your mind something to gently hold on to. Even more, these daily rituals become bridges to others. You share updates. You ask for advice. You teach. You listen. Without realizing it, you are no longer alone in your rhythm. You are connected. But when days come and go without shape, without aim, something heavier begins to settle in. Loneliness doesn't always arrive loudly. Often, it creeps in with the absence of movement, meaning, and shared moments. So if you felt that quiet emptiness, the kind that doesn't break you but slowly dims you, ask yourself, what is the rhythm of your day? What do you return to, not out of habit but out of heart? Then choose one thing. Just one. Maybe it's writing a note to someone. Maybe it's walking the same path each morning, or lighting a candle each evening. Let that one thing become your anchor. Let it tether you gently to this day and the next and the one after that. Because in that small act of intention, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop drifting. You start living again with purpose. If this message resonated with you, if something deep inside you stirred when we talked about movement and meaning, I invite you to take a small step today. Leave a comment below with number 4 if this part spoke to you. I'd love to know you're here walking this journey too. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Not just so you don't miss future videos, but so we can continue creating gentle, thoughtful content that uplifts and supports you. Your presence here matters. Your strength, in all its forms, is still deeply needed in this world. Let's keep going together. Number 5. The opportunity to contribute to something greater than yourself. There comes a point in life when you begin to look beyond your own story, not because your story is finished but because you've lived enough chapters to see the bigger picture. And in that shift, a quiet yearning often emerges. The need to give back, to contribute, to leave something meaningful behind. It's not about legacy in the grand sense, not buildings with your name or headlines in the paper. It's about knowing that, in some small way, your life has helped move the world forward. Let me tell you about June, an 80-year-old woman who spent decades as a schoolteacher. When she retired, she was exhausted, ready to rest. But after a few years, she felt a kind of emptiness. Not because she had nothing to do, but because she no longer felt like she was adding value to anything larger than herself. Then one day, a neighbor asked if she could help a local teen with reading. 1 hour a week turned into a deep bond. June didn't just help the girl with books, she helped her believe in herself. And for the first time in years, June felt lit from within. Because when we contribute, whether through mentoring, volunteering, creating, or simply offering wisdom, something beautiful happens. We move from aging to impacting, from watching the world to shaping it. And it doesn't have to be big. Knitting blankets for newborns, tending a community garden, writing down your life lessons for future generations, simply offering presents to someone going through a hard time. These acts may seem small, but they ripple. They remind you that even in your 70s, 80s, 90s, you still have something the world needs. And more than that, they help you wake each morning with a deeper purpose, not just to live, but to give. To know that your time, your experience, your love, they still count for something. Because the truth is, we were never meant to live only for ourselves. We were built to serve, to shape, to support one another. And that calling doesn't fade with age, it deepens. So if you've been wondering lately, what now? Look around. Look within. There's always someone you can help. Always something you can nurture. Always a way to make life better, for someone else and for yourself. Number 6. The presence of self-worth and dignity. There comes a moment, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once, when the world begins to treat you differently. Cashiers speak more loudly, more slowly. Doctors speak around you instead of to you. Family members make decisions in your name without asking. You're offered help without being asked if you want it. And somewhere in all of this, something small but painful begins to take root. The quiet feeling that you've become less, that your voice has softened, your place has shifted, your presence is no longer at the center of your own life. But let me tell you something clearly and without hesitation. Growing older does not make you less important. Needing support does not mean you've lost your dignity. And losing certain abilities does not diminish your value as a human being. What causes the deepest pain in old age isn't the walker, the hearing aids, or the slower steps. It's the slow erosion of recognition, the feeling that you're no longer seen not as who you are but as who you've become. Let me introduce you to Margaret, a 77-year-old retired nurse who once held the lives of others in her hands every single day. After a fall left her dependent on a walker, she noticed a shift. Conversations were held around her, not with her. Strangers assumed she was confused. Her adult children began to speak to her in soft, almost childlike tones. Margaret didn't resent the help. She missed the respect. The sense that she was still a thinking, capable, whole human being. The loss that wounded her most wasn't physical, it was the loss of dignity. Thankfully, many researchers and clinicians are now recognizing this truth. When older adults are treated with dignity, when they're spoken to, listened to, and included in decisions, everything improves. Health outcomes rise. Confidence grows. And most importantly, the spirit stays strong. But dignity isn't only about how others treat us. It's also about how we treat ourselves. Ask yourself, do I still speak kindly to myself? Do I honor the life I've lived, the love I've given, the losses I've endured, the wisdom I carry? When I look in the mirror, do I see someone worthy of deep respect, even on the hard days? Because here's the truth. Self-worth isn't earned by achievements. It's not about how fast you walk, how much you can do, or how young you look. It's about remembering your story. Knowing that you've lived, loved, lost, learned, and kept going. And that deserves reverence. Every wrinkle has its reason. Every scar has a name. And every morning you rise, no matter how slowly, is an act of quiet courage. If the world has made you feel small or invisible, let this be your reminder. Your worth was never measured by your speed, your strength, or your status. It has always been about your presence. And who you are right now, just as you are, is still needed, still valuable, and still deeply worthy of dignity. Never let the world, or your own inner voice, convince you otherwise. If this message reminded you of your worth or touched your heart, I invite you to let me know. Drop a number 6 in the comments to show that this part spoke to you. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and turn on the bell, not just for updates but to keep receiving encouragement that honors the fullness of your life. You matter. You are worthy. And you always have been. Number 7. The feeling of being needed by someone or something. There's a particular kind of emptiness that can settle in the soul as we age. It isn't just loneliness, though that may be part of it. It's the quiet ache of no longer feeling needed. It can happen without warning. When the phone stops ringing for your advice. When family stops asking what you think. When days go by and no one seems to notice your absence. That's when the deeper weight of aging can press down hardest. Because deep inside, every human being, no matter their age, longs for this one simple truth: to matter. Let me tell you about Charles, 84, a man who had lived fully. He'd built a family, run a small business, and was once the one everyone leaned on. But after his wife passed and his children moved far away, something shifted. They still called now and then, still loved him, but the daily interactions, the small favors, the little, "Can you help me with this?" moments, those were gone. And without them, Charles began to feel like a shadow in the background. Like the world was moving just fine without him. But then, something unexpected happened. A young boy from the neighborhood, no more than 10, began stopping by on his way home from school. Just to talk. To show a drawing. To share a story. 15 minutes, a few days a week. But for Charles it changed everything. Suddenly he had someone to listen to. A voice that looked up to him. A reason to sit outside again, to prepare a story, to feel useful. Not because of who he had been, but because of who he still was. Doctors now understand what the heart has known all along. Feeling needed, even in small, ordinary ways, helps protect against depression, slows cognitive decline, and even extends life. But beyond the science, there's something more powerful. Being needed gives us a reason to keep showing up. It brings us back to life. It lifts us from within. It reminds us that we are still part of the world, not apart from it. And being needed doesn't have to come from children or a spouse. Sometimes it's the dog who waits faithfully by the door. The friend who looks forward to your weekly call. The group that misses your voice when you skip a meeting. Or the neighbor who waves just a little brighter when they see you on the porch. It's not about how many people need you. It's about knowing that someone does. And if you're sitting there thinking, "No one needs me anymore," I want to challenge that gently but firmly. There is always someone who could benefit from your presence. Someone younger who needs your wisdom. Someone lonely who would treasure your conversation. Someone struggling who simply needs your kind voice to remind them they're not alone. Even a note of encouragement, a small gesture of care, can restart the cycle. When you feel needed, you begin to see your life again through a different lens. You sit a little taller. You care a little more. You remember, I belong. I still make a difference. Because the truth is, we never outgrow the need to be needed. And when that need is met, even in a quiet, humble way, life becomes richer, sweeter, more connected, more worth living. Final thoughts. If you've made it to this point, I want to take a quiet moment to say, thank you. Not just for watching, but for staying open, for being willing to reflect, for continuing to care about what your life feels like even now, especially now. These 7 needs we've talked about today: purpose, movement, connection, curiosity, dignity, being needed, contribution. They're not luxuries. They are life-giving essentials. And the absence of even one can quietly erode our sense of wholeness. But the beauty is this: you don't need to fix everything at once. You only need to begin, one small shift, one gentle choice, one step toward yourself. Because it's never too late to feel alive again, to reconnect, to rediscover meaning, to matter. Aging is not the end of your becoming. It is simply the beginning of becoming something deeper. If any part of this video spoke to your heart, I would be honored if you'd let me know. Comment below with the number that resonated most with you, or simply share your thoughts. I read every message. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe and turn on the bell. Your presence here supports the quiet work of creating more content that honors aging, affirms dignity, and celebrates the richness of later life. More than anything, please remember this. You are not alone. You are not invisible. And you are still becoming beautifully, courageously, and in your own time. Let's keep going together.